Okay, you get a little notification over there that we went live. Make sure that it's working. There's David. And it looks like it is working. Okay, perfect. Okay, welcome everybody. So it's a good time to join Neil because we're starting a new Mishnah, even though we're continuing on the same concept, but we are on 5a, Hey Amar Aleph, 5a at the top, the second line starts a new Mishnah.
Just wish I had the book.
Yeah, but still, the concept that we're starting with a new idea, it helps. That way, we're not continuing on a previous conversation. But even nonetheless, we are continuing on a previous conversation because we are talking about conspiring witnesses. And to give a little recap of what a conspiring witness is, a conspiring witness is witness is at least two people. In Judaism, we don't usually rely on one witness. You need to have at least two witnesses in most cases, but it could be 20 witnesses. It doesn't have to be just two, it could be more than two. Now, when you have two witnesses that come forward and they say that someone else is guilty of something, and anything from capital punishment to a monetary punishment, right, that they're coming to the Bezdin, to the Jewish court. So now what happens if another two witnesses come and say, how could you say that? How could you say that you witnessed X, Y, and Z? On that day, you were with us. So they become conspiring witnesses. And the punishment to them is that their punishment is that whatever they were trying to give to the other guy, they get themselves. If they were trying to get the other guy killed, capital punishment, they get killed. If they were trying to get them a monetary punishment, they get a monetary punishment. If they were trying to get the guy to get lashes, which is also a punishment mentioned in the Torah, so they get lashes. And that is the concept of conspiring witnesses. But the first Mishnah that we're going to learn today, again, on Daf Hey Amar Aleph, 5a, all the way at the top, the first Mishnah, we're going to learn two Mishnahs today. First Mishnah is going to talk about splitting the punishment. How do we, when you have two witnesses that come, or more, let's say you have three, it's a better example when you have more, right? So you have three witnesses that come and they say that Reuven borrowed money from Shimon and hasn't paid him back. Now, if they become conspiring witnesses, let's say they said, the Mishnah is going to give the example, let's say they said that Reuven borrowed $200 from Shimon and he didn't pay it back. So they were trying to get Reuven to take $200 out of his pocket to pay Shimon. If they become conspiring witnesses, meaning by the fact that other witnesses come and say, it can't be true what you said, so then they have to take out of their pockets $200 and give it to Shimon. So the question is, not to Shimon, to Reuven, to the one that tried to make him lose money. The question is, that $200, there's three witnesses here that came forward. Do each of them have to give $200? Or do they have to split the $200 between the three of them? So with that introduction, let's go into the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Meshalshin b'mamein, that when it comes to a financial punishment, so then we split the punishment equally between the witnesses that are conspiring, right? So if there's three witnesses and it's $300 they tried, so each one has to give $100. But when it comes to lashes, we do not split the punishment of lashes. Well, how much is lashes? Lashes, as we mentioned, is 39 lashes, right? So we do not split up the lashes. We don't give equal parts. In this case, it would be 13, 13, and 13. We don't do that. We give each one the full amount of the lashes. So it's a difference if it's a financial punishment or if it is a lashes punishment. Now, the Mishnah even gives an example so we can understand it. Ketzad, what's the example? He'idu, if witnesses came forward and said, Shu chayv l'chaverim asayim zuz, they come forward and they say that Reuven owes Shimon 200 zuz. Zuz is a type of money, let's say $200, and then they were found to be conspiring witnesses. So Mishalshin b'neihem, you split it between them. This 200 zuz, you split between the witnesses, whether it was two witnesses, 10 witnesses, each one pays their share of that 200 zuz. Aval, but what if it was in a case, hey, they came and they said that so-and-so did something, and by the fact of what he did, he deserves the punishment that the Torah gives to such a person is lashes, 39 lashes. So then, and then they were found to be conspiring witnesses. So you don't split up the lashes in between them. Each one gets a full set of lashes. Kol echad ve'echad, like arbaim, each one gets the 40 minus 1 lashes. So that is the Mishnah. Now we go into the Gemara to explain this Mishnah, and the Gemara says, the Mishnah made a statement, but what's the source? As we know, anything that is mentioned as a halacha has to have a source. It's not just the opinion that the rabbi had that morning. It has to have a source, and the source has to be, to a certain degree, connected to something that's mentioned in the Torah, right? So where is the source of this statement that if it's a financial punishment, you split it equally between the conspiring witnesses, and if it's a lashes punishment, so then you don't, each one gets a full set of lashes. So Amar Abaya, so there's two opinions here, Abaya and Rava, two famous sages that are mentioned in the Gemara. Abaya says, Nemar Rasha b'chayve malkis, that he learns it out as a gzeira shava. One of the processes that we learn something in the Torah is by the placement of specific words. So when there's a halacha that is mentioned in the Torah renders a judgment, and it has a specific word there, and there's the same word in another halacha, we can connect those two. Not me, not you, but the sages of the Talmud. They could connect those two and learn that if the halacha is like this in this case, so therefore the halacha is like this also in that case. And it's called a gzeira shava. And it's one of the processes that's mentioned many times in the Gemara. So the Gemara says, Abaya says, that it says Rasha b'chayve malkis, that it says the word Rasha, evil one, when it talks about someone that needs to get lashes, right? And that's what it says. V'haya im bin hakois harasha. That's the pasuk in Chumash Dvarim. And then v'nemar, it also says Rasha b'chayve misais bezdin. It also is, when it comes to capital punishment, it also refers to that person as a Rasha, an evil one. So mala halon in misa lemechza. Just like when it comes to capital punishment, can you kill someone halfway? You can't give someone a half punishment of capital punishment. You're either either he gets capital punishment or he doesn't get capital punishment, right? By the way, in the Torah, there is such a thing as capital punishment. It wasn't meted out very often. It says that if a bezdin, a Jewish court, gave capital punishment more than once in a 7-year period, and keep in mind, capital punishment is someone killed somebody else. But it's such a grueling task to make sure that it's the right person that you got and that he was pre-warned and he knew what he was doing, he was in the right mind, etc., etc. So rare that a bezdin, that a Jewish court would give capital punishment, that the sages would say that if a Jewish court killed someone, capital punishment, more than once in a 7-year period, it was called like a bloody bezdin. It was like they gave them a nickname, so to speak, right? Why? Because it's not something that happens very often, but obviously in the Torah it does mention this idea of capital punishment. But back to our gzeira shava, back to our learning, just like you can't give half of capital punishment, so to Afkan, we learn from there, also over here, you can't give malchus lemechza. You can't give lashes halfway. We don't give, not that you can't give. Technically, you could split it, but we don't because of that learning that we learn from one place to the other. Just like capital punishment, you give the whole punishment. So too, when it comes to lashes, you give the whole punishment. Also, as we mentioned, when it comes to lashes, they would have a doctor check out the person if he's fit to get the lashes. And if he was fit only to get one lash, he would only get one lash. And in most cases, people wouldn't get the full 39 lashes. Obviously, it was a bit too much for anybody, even a healthy body, to get. So it would be only something that a doctor would say this person can handle and won't get to and won't be too hurt. But anyways, that's a side one. So that is the way Abaya explains what our Mishnah says, right? Our Mishnah made a statement that when it comes to lashes, you don't split it in half. Abaya tells you, where do we know that from? What's the source of that? Because of this Gezeira Shava, this learning based on the capital punishment idea. Rava Amar. Very often when we have Abaya, we have Rava. There were two sages that were good friends, and they would argue a lot. What's good friends in Judaism? Yeah, argue with your friend, right? And the Gemara is full of that. So Rava says, "Ba'inon kasher zaman lasis la'achiv v'lekam." The whole point of conspiring witnesses, that the punishment that you give to the conspiring witness is based on a verse in the Torah that says that you give the conspiring witness that which he conspired to give to his friend. So here he conspired that this other dude, this other friend, we call him a friend. They might have not been friends, but in the Torah, we refer to everybody as friends, right? So he conspired that Reuven should get lashes. And if he conspired that Reuven should get lashes, and he conspired that Reuven should get 39 lashes. And if he only ends up with 13 lashes, so he's not getting what he conspired to give to Reuven. And therefore, we need that he should get the full amount that he can. Each of the witnesses need to get the full amount that he conspired to give to Reuven. So what's the obvious question? The obvious question, according to what Rava just said, so how do we split the financial payment? If each witness, and that's the next question of the Gemara, Ihachi, if you're going to give that reasoning, Mamei Nami, by the financial punishment, we said in the Mishnah, we do split the financial punishment. So if it was 200 zuz that he tried to get Reuven to pay to Shimon, so we would say that if it was two witnesses, each one only has to give 100, and together they have 200 that they give to Reuven, right? So why do we say over there, if we're trying to say that the witnesses should get punished in what they conspired that Reuven should do, so then each one should pay 200, just like by the lashes, each one should get the full amount of lashes. So that's the question that the Gemara asks on Rava's statement. So the Gemara answers, Mamain mitzaref, Malkus le mitzaref. Mamain, money, you could join together. Meaning, ultimately, Reuven is going to get 200 zuz. You tried. These witnesses conspired and tried to get Reuven to pay 200 zuz. Now he's going to go away from this bezdin in his pocket with an extra 200 zuz, meaning he got what they conspired to make him pay, right? So he walks out with the full kasher zamam, the full conspiring amount. But when it comes to lashes, he has no benefit. There's no benefit to Reuven. It's only that they tried to get me to have lashes. Now they'll get lashes. So since there's no benefit, they do not join together, and therefore you can't give half the amount to one and half the amount to the other because they do not join together. So that is the Gemara on the Mishnah. So a pretty short Mishnah, and now we move along to the next Mishnah. The next Mishnah, that witnesses do not become. Let me give an introduction. That way we go into the Mishnah in the proper headspace. So this concept, the Mishnah is going to be talking about. We're discussing this concept of witnesses turning into conspiring witnesses. So if two guys get together and they say, let's mess up Reuven and let's go to the court and say that he owes Shimon 200 zuz, right? And we'll play with him. We'll mess him up, right? Now, if another two witnesses come and they say, what you said can't be true because of X, Y, and Z, so they become conspiring witnesses. Now, the Mishnah over here is going to say that it only applies this halacha, unique halacha, based on a verse in the Torah, but it's a very unique halacha, that this only applies if the canceling of their statement is based on the witness themselves and not on their testimony. What's the difference? There's the person that you could come and say, Yankel, how did you go bear witness that Sunday you were in such and such a place? How could you say that? Imanu Ayisem, you were with us in another country. So it couldn't be that you were there to witness that which you're saying you have witnessed. They become a conspiring witness. But if they say, how could you say that such and such a thing happened? We witnessed otherwise, not about the actual witnesses, but about the occurrence. So then it doesn't apply. So that is That is the concept. I just need to send a quick 1 sec. Hold. So that is the concept here of this Mishnah. So let's go see the Mishnah inside. That the witnesses do not become into the category of conspiring witnesses until the people become conspiring and not the testimony. So the Mishnah doesn't leave it at that. It gives an example. What's the idea? If two witnesses come and they say like this, we give testimony, two witnesses come and they will give testimony that Reuven killed Shimon 2 weeks ago, Sunday, in such and such a place, etc. Right? They give all the parameters. This is what happened, and they get cross-examined. Right? So they come, they give testimony about a specific thing that happened, that Reuven killed Shimon. Now, Amru Lahem, another two witnesses show up and they tell him, hey, Chatam Idin, how can you give such testimony? Shaharei nerag zeh oyahoyrig zeh hayaymanu. How could you say that Reuven killed Shimon 2 weeks ago Sunday? 2 weeks ago Sunday, Reuven was with us in New York. So it's impossible that you witnessed that because Reuven couldn't have been where you said he was, right? So they canceled the testimony. So these witnesses do not become conspiring witnesses. They're not conspiring witnesses. It cancels their testimony, but they're not conspiring witnesses, meaning that they don't get the punishment that we said conspiring witnesses get. Right? Why? Because they came and they canceled their testimony. They didn't cancel the person, the witness. Avol. But what about another scenario? This is a scenario that they do become conspiring witnesses. Amru lahem, if they tell them, hey Chatem. So again, they come and they say that 2 weeks ago Sunday, Reuven, we witnessed how Reuven killed Shimon in such and such a place, at such and such a time. And then another two witnesses come and they say, hey, Chatam Idin, how could you say that? Not that Reuven was with us. You, the witness, you were with us in another country, in New York at that day. You weren't in Montreal that day. You were with us in New York 2 weeks ago Sunday. Right? So these are considered to be conspiring witnesses because they didn't cancel the testimony, they canceled the person. And in this case, they actually get the capital punishment because they tried to give Reuven capital punishment. They conspired to give Reuven capital punishment, so they get capital punishment. They get killed on this Alpiyam based on what they said. Okay, now the Gemara says another scenario. Now, in general, Bo echedim, if others come. Now, the first two witnesses came, another two witnesses came, and now a third set of witnesses came, and the first two witnesses came and they said that Yankel did such and such a thing and therefore he deserves such and such a punishment, right? And now a second set of witnesses come and Zimum and made them conspiring witnesses, said that they were with us, etc. Imanu Ayisem, you were with us, and therefore they become conspiring witnesses. And Bo Achedim, and now a third set of witnesses come. The Hezimum, and they make the second set of witnesses into conspiring witnesses. Again, Yankel and two sets of witnesses come and say that Reuven did such and therefore deserves such and such a punishment. The next set of witnesses come and say, first set of witnesses can't be that you said that because you were with us that day, so it's impossible that. Now a third set of witnesses says, you second set of witnesses, it's impossible because you were with us that day. So how could you say you were with the first set of witnesses, right? And afilu meya, even if it's 100 sets of witnesses, kulam yeiragu. Now, if they all came and they said that they were all based on the first scenario, that there was capital punishment involved, so they all get killed. All this 100 sets. Meaning it's not a practical idea. Yeah, Neil.
I have a question, please.
Yeah.
It's been all of these sages that put these laws together, right? Where were they in the world?
This is 2,000 years ago in Babylonian.
Okay, fine. So,
but it's based on the Torah that was given 3,300 years ago.
No, I understand that, Rabbi. However, if you had someone that had a capital punishment or something like really serious, does it stay with the rabbis of the Beis Din, or does it go to the authorities in Babylonia?
So it's a good question. It's a good question. Absolutely. This only applies in a place or in Israel at a time that the Jewish people are in control and they're following the halacha based on the Torah view. Yes, agreed. If it was in Babylonia and there was another, there's a higher authority, it's not allowed to be tried in a Jewish court. Only financial arguments are allowed to be tried. Let's say, for example, even today, there's a Beis Din here in Montreal. And if you have an argument with your friend, a financial, let's say you have two partners are trying to figure out who owes who money, etc., you can go to a rabbi and get a psak din Torah, but it only holds if both agree on such a court, so to speak. If not, you have to go to the local court of the land. And even in such a case, you could always go afterwards, to the local court. This only applies at a time, like think about King David's time, right? In times of King David, when it was in King Solomon, Shlomo Melech, when the Jewish people were in control of the land of Israel, and the halacha went according to a Jewish court, and that's when this would apply. It does not apply. We don't give chas v'shalom. No rabbi today would give capital punishment whatsoever. And if there is such a scenario where there is something that has to go to a court, obviously it goes to a local court and not to a Beis Din, unless both sides agree that we want to really figure this out in-house, and let's go and to a Beis Din, to a Jewish court, in here in Montreal, the Vadair, and we'll sit down with three expert rabbis and we'll hash it out and we'll follow whatever the rabbis tell us, right? But that's only for financial arguments that you have with somebody. It's not for capital punishment whatsoever. Chas v'shalom, if you're a witness in God forbid, if you're a witness to a murder, you don't call your local rabbi, you call 911 and you end up as a witness in court, not as a witness in a Beis Din. It's a good question, but it clarifies that this is not, it's not as applicable as we're learning it, but still it's Torah law, and it applies in a situation where Torah law is the one that we're following. Even today in Israel, the local courts are not the same as Torah law, and we go to a local court. When Mashiach comes, that's when we're going to follow Torah law in a proper manner.
Thank you, Rabbi.
No, my pleasure. So this first statement was the Tanna Kama says that if you have even 100 witnesses that one after another become conspiring witness, they all get the punishment of the first one, and if it's capital punishment, they'll all get that capital punishment. Rabbi Yoda comes and says, nah. If it was such a balagan, like sometimes you have a balagan in court. This witness comes and says this one says this, comes and says this, and then another witness, and you have that even today. And at one point, they're almost making a joke out of the court, right? And the same thing, Rabbi Yoda says, this is what's happening over here. Istatis, it's a joke that they're making. The last group is coming, and they're just making a joke out of the court, and therefore we don't believe them. And only we go back to the first step, the first conspiring witness, because what happens? The first group becomes conspiring witnesses. So therefore, there's another group that comes and says, no, you're a conspiring witness. And it just becomes a game. So therefore, we don't believe the later ones. We only believe the first one, and that's it. The Gemara is going to discuss it, and they're going to say, you believe the first one, but the next one you don't believe. Why don't you believe the next one? At what point do you draw that line? But that's going to be a discussion of the Gemara. As we know, the Mishnah is just a basic statement, and then the Gemara hammers it up and tries to understand it in a better way. So let's go into the Gemara, but the Gemara is first going to discuss the first part of the Mishnah. The first part of the Mishnah is the fact that the conspiring witness that gets the punishment that they were trying to give to the other person can only happen if they broke the testimony of the person, they canceled the person, not if they canceled the testimony. Right? So the Gemara says, where do you know this? Just like the previous Gemara asked. It's a general question in the Gemara. When the Mishnah makes a statement, so we want to know, where do you learn this from? It has to, usually, for the most part, has to come from a source of a verse in the Torah. So Amar Ravada comes and says, Damar Kra, says in a verse, that this witness said false testimony, sheker ana. He said he replied something false. So we learn from there ad sheti shaker gufa shaleidos, that until the witnesses become liars themselves. Not that what they said was a lie, but they become liars themselves. Not that they break the testimony, but that they break the person. They make the person into a liar. And that's the way Rav Ada says, based on a verse, that in order to make someone into a conspiring witness, it only happens if they cancel the person, not the testimony. The Vei Rabbi Yishmael Tana. So that was one opinion. That's Rav Ada's opinion. But in the yeshiva of Rabbi Yishmael, they learned it from a different place. It says in the pasuk, it says in a verse, Ki yakumeit chamas bish laneis beisara. Right, so that they come and they say not about the person, not about the testimony, but about the person. So they learn from there ad sheti sara, until it's taken away gufa shaleidos, the person that is testifying over here, right? Until they recognize that the whole testimony was false, that the person who came to give testimony is all false. Until that happens, then he's not considered to be a conspiring witness, and therefore it would only apply if they cancel the person, not if they cancel his testimony. Now, the Gemara now, in the next few statements, we're going to learn 1, 2, I think 3 statements from Rava. Rava, again, Talmudic sage that we just learned from earlier. We're going to bring a few statements from Rava, different details, different halachas, different rules when it comes to conspiring witness. So Amar Rava comes and says, if two people came, two witnesses came, two people showed up to Bezdin, V'amru, and they said in court, B'mizrach bira harag ploini es hanefesh. We watched how Reuven killed Shimon, but they say they obviously have to give the details, and they have to be exact on the details, and they say it was on the east side of such and such a building. Right, this is a big building on the side of the town. It's a big mansion. We witnessed it happening on the east side of the building. That's where it happened. Now, Boshnayim, and now another two witnesses come and say, V'amru, V'aloi b'mayriv bira imanu hayisem. You say that the killing happened on the east side of the building, but you were standing with us on the west side of the building. That's right. So they're saying, how could you have seen what went on the east side of the building? You were with us on the west side of the building. So the halacha is very simple. Chazinon, go and check it out. The Rabbanim on the Bezdin, you don't just sit in a courtroom and listen to testimony. Go to the place that it happened and see, try to figure it out. Chazinon. If when you're standing on the west side, where the second group testified that they were standing, if you're standing on that location on the west side, can you see what's going on the east side? Right? Sometimes you could. If you could, so then they're not conspiring witnesses, because it's possible that they were standing on the west side and saw what happened on the east side. But if where they were standing on the west side, it is impossible to see what's going on the east side. So therefore, they considered conspiring witnesses. Now you're going to tell me this is obvious. It makes sense, right? What else are you going to say? This makes perfect sense. And the Gemara says that pshita. It's obvious. It's so simple. You don't even need to make that statement. Why is it? What's Rava coming to tell us? Rava can't come and tell us the obvious. No, we don't have statements that are, telling us the obvious. If he's telling us the obvious, there's obviously something that we're missing. There's obviously some detail over here that we need to know. That we need to that we need to learn a little deeper into what Rava says. So the Gemara answers, Mao de Tema lechesh lenahira barya. So what happened over here? The sages, the rabbanim, the dayanim, the court appointed rabbanim, they go to the location and they try to see, standing on the west side, could they see what's going on the east side? So we might say, one second, maybe these are old rabbis and they don't have such good vision, and therefore they can't see what's going on the east side. So maybe we should be worried that these witnesses have, unbelievable vision, maybe even, vision that they could see through walls. Or I'm joking, that's not what it means. But maybe they have much better vision, and therefore they were able to see what goes on the east side, as opposed to the rabbis who were a little older and their eyesight is not so good, right? What was it? The Olympics the other day, there was a Canadian that won gold, and she was a swimmer, and she was squinting because she didn't have her glasses on. She didn't even know she won gold. She's trying to see. I heard this yesterday. She couldn't even see that she won gold. She's still in the pool and she's trying to figure out if she was like where she's ranked. And meanwhile, she was gold, right? So maybe they don't have such good eyesight. And since they don't have such good eyesight, that we can't rely on that. So Kamash Malan, Rava is coming to tell us with the halach that he says that we go on the average eyesight. We don't rely that maybe this guy had better eyesight. No, we go with the average eyesight, and therefore the Bezdin, the court, goes and checks it out. And if they can't see, then they are considered to be Eidim Zayim, and they're considered to be conspiring witnesses. Okay, so that's one statement from Rava. V'yamar Rava. Rava says another statement. Ba'u shnayim v'amru. If two people came and said, two witnesses came into the court and they said, Besura. Okay, Sura is a town in Babylonia. Betzafra in the morning. Bechad b'shabta on Sunday morning. Okay, so in Sura, in this town, on Sunday morning, Harag Pliny is a nefesh. Ruvain killed Shimon. Harag killed Pliny. Pliny is killed someone, right? Now Uvo and another two come and Ve'amru, and they say to the first witnesses, Bepanya bechad b'shabta on Sunday afternoon or evening, really. Bepanya in the evening of Sunday. Imanu ayisem benarda. You are with us in another town in Narda. Narda is another town in Babylonia. The reason why they're using Babylonian towns is because that's what they were familiar with, right? So it's saying, it's like me giving an example of Dollard and Montreal or Dollard and New York, right? So they're giving examples that the sages were familiar with. So the Gemara says, what do you do? So Chazinon, again, you have to check it out. What are you checking out? You're checking out if someone was Sunday morning in Surah, does he have enough time to get to Narda for the evening, right? If someone was Sunday morning in Dollard, does he have enough time to get to Quebec City for the evening, right? That's what you have to check out. So Chazinon, you have to check that out. If from morning to evening, you're able, it's possible to travel, it's enough time to travel from one town to the other, from Surah to Narda. So if it is possible, so then they're not considered to be conspiring witnesses. But if it's not possible, meaning it's too far of a walk or camel ride, etc. So they're considered to be conspiring witnesses. Again, the Gemara says Pshita. The Gemara says it's obvious. Why is Rava coming to tell us the obvious? Obviously, this is what you do. You check it out in this kind of way, right? So Pshita. So the Gemara says you might say that we would rely that these first set of witnesses maybe went on an airplane, and not an airplane, a pre-airplane. It's called camels that fly, Gemala parcha, a flying camel, which was a certain camel that existed at the time, that a certain type of camel that went much quicker than other types of camels. So you say maybe we should rely on the fact that maybe they went because they went with a very quick. They went with a sports car. They went very quick in a quick route, right? And maybe that's what you should rely on. So say no, we rely on the average. Kamash Malan, that we don't rely on that. We rely on the average. And if they didn't have enough time to travel with an average mode of transportation, then they're considered to be zayim conspiring witnesses. Okay, so that's another halacha when it comes to conspiring witnesses. Another statement from Rabba. If two people came, let's say they show up to Bezdin, they show up to the Jewish court on a Tuesday. When they come and they say, Bechad b'Shabta, they come today on a Tuesday, and they say that on Sunday, Bechad b'Shabta, the first day of the week, on Sunday, Harag Plainis and Nefesh, Reuven killed Shimon. And another two witnesses come, and they say, how could you say that you witnessed on Sunday Reuven killing Shimon? You were with us on Sunday. You were with us on Sunday. But they don't stop there. They say, on Sunday you were with us, but Reuven did kill Shimon. When did Reuven kill Shimon? He killed him, but he killed him on Monday. You're mixing up your dates. Sunday you were with us, and Monday is when Reuven killed Shimon. So that's one scenario. What's the other scenario? This is a scenario that they said Sunday, but the action actually happened on a Monday. But the Gemara continues, or Rava continues and says, Ela afilu amru erev Shabbos harag. Even if he says, the first set of witnesses come and say it happened on Sunday. The second set of witnesses says, no, you were with us on Sunday. It happened on Friday, the Friday before that he killed him. So he says, so they're considered to be conspiring witnesses. They're considered to be conspiring witnesses. Because what you said false testimony. It doesn't matter that he actually did it, but since he did it on another day, what you are saying is false testimony, and he's not. He doesn't deserve any punishment yet. He doesn't deserve any punishment. What does it mean doesn't deserve any punishment? Because if Reuven walks into court by himself and says, I made a terrible mistake, I killed Shimon, the halacha is that he doesn't get capital punishment. He gets thrown into jail for the rest of his life, but you can't self-incriminate. You can't self-incriminate. And if you you can't self-incriminate for certain things, for knas, for an extra punishment, or for capital punishment. You can't self-incriminate. It has to be done by other witnesses. So if he would have showed up and he would have said, if he would have self-incriminated himself, then he wouldn't get this capital punishment. You come and you're trying to give him capital punishment, and you're saying something not true, so you're considered to be a conspiring witness. So the Gemara says, Micah Mashmalan, you're not telling us anything new. Tanina, we learned this already. Okay, it's going to be in a Gemara that we're going to learn in 2 pages, and a Mishnah, that we're going to learn in 2 pages, that it says, Lefichach, over there in the Mishnah it says, Nimtzeis achas mehen zememes, hu vahein neragin hashniya ptura, that we learned this idea, this concept, this halacha very clearly in a Mishnah. Rava is the next generation. Rava is a Talmudic sage. The Mishnah is Mishnaic sages, and it's a previous generation. So Rava has to be saying something new that we didn't learn in a Mishnah. Because if it's in a Mishnah, we don't need Rava to tell us. We already have it recorded in a Mishnah. So obviously Rava is coming to tell us something new. So the Gemara continues and says that Rava is coming to tell us something new, meaning he says the first part of his statement in order to say the second part of his statement. What's the second part of the statement? We're going to see now. Seifa masha'enken bigmar din itzrichale. Meaning that the Gemara answers that yes, the beginning, what we mentioned from Rava, that we just said, the idea from Rava, we don't need to say because it's obvious and it's already said in the Mishnah, but it's brought down in order to bring us the second part of Rava's statement. That's itzrichale, that we need him to say because that we don't have anywhere else. What's the seifa? What's the end part of Rava's statement? And he has it here inside Ba'ushnayim. If 2 people come to a bezdin on a Tuesday, right? V'amru, and they say b'chad b'shabta, that on Sunday, not that Reuven killed Shimon on Sunday. On Sunday, Reuven was found guilty in a Jewish court that he killed Shimon. What's the difference in the cases? In the first case that we mentioned from Rava, they're testifying to an action that Reuven did. On the second case, they're testifying that judgment was rendered. Today judgment's rendered. You go onto Google and you'll find the judgment rendered. But in back in the day, they found Reuven guilty, but Reuven ran away to another city. So now these witnesses are coming to say that we know that in the other city, Reuven was found guilty of of killing someone, and he deserves capital punishment. So again, they come and they say on a Tuesday that this past Sunday, Reuven was found guilty and he deserves capital punishment. Right now, another two witnesses come and they say to the first one, Vamru, and they tell the first set of witnesses, it can't be on Sunday. It can't be that happened on Sunday because on that Sunday you were with us. Right? Elo Berev Shabbos. When did it happen? It happened on a Friday. The Friday before is when they were found guilty, when Reuven was found guilty of murder. Nigmar Dina Shalplaini. And even if it wasn't on a Friday, even if they said it was on Monday, meaning the day before, between Sunday and Tuesday, right? Nigmar Dina Shalplaini. So Ein Elu Neragin, these witnesses, these first witnesses, do not get, they're not considered to be conspiring witnesses, even though they made a mix-up of the details. Why? Because what they were saying about this person, he deserves capital punishment. They mixed up the details, but he deserves capital punishment, meaning he can't get out of capital punishment by, in the first case, we said he could get out of capital punishment by self-incriminating. Here, he's done. He's already, the law was passed and the law was rendered, and therefore he has no way out. So Barktolahu, he's going to get capital punishment. So therefore, they're not considered to be conspiring witnesses because they're not trying to give him a punishment that he wasn't going to get. And that's the difference. And that's why the Gemara says that's what Rava was coming to tell us. So now, there's two different scenarios there's two different ways there's punishment. There's punishment in a form of knas. Punishment is in a form of punishment, and then there's punishment in a form of repayment. And now this is what we're going to get into in the Gemara. So for example, if God forbid Reuven steals $100 from Shimon and he comes to court, so he has to give back the $100. That's repayment of what he stole. That's one form of punishment. Then there's a top of that, there's a 20% punishment on top of that. So there's the punishment of repayment, and then there's punishment of knas, of just like, to make sure that people don't do these kinds of things. On top of that, when God forbid someone steals an animal, this is a biblical law. When someone steals an animal from somebody else, and this animal, he shechted. He went and he slaughtered this animal. What's the thing? Now, this animal is worth much more, meaning if you're going to sell an animal, a cow, it's worth $100. But if you shecht it and you do it properly and you cut it up and you package it, etc., now it's worth 5 times the amount. The amount that you're going to get now is five or six times. So if you did that, the halacha is that you have to pay 5 or 6 times the amount of the value of the animal that you stole. But this is a form of knas. It's a punishment. It's an extra punishment of what you have to pay on top. So let's go into that idea. Rava continues and says, similarly, when it comes to paying a knas, when it comes to paying a punishment, so for example, a conspiring witness has got to pay a punishment. Right? When they have to give the 200 zuz that they tried to get Reuven to pay to Shimon, so now what they have to pay is a punishment. So what's the scenario? Two witnesses come into a court and they say that on Sunday, they come on Tuesday and they say that on Sunday, Ganav, Reuven stole the tavachu machar, and he shechted the animal and he sold it for parts, right? He sold the meat. So now he's going to have to pay 5 times the amount, right? And another two show up. Another two witnesses come, and they say to the first two witnesses, "V'amru bechad b'shabta on Sunday, imano yisem, you were with us. So it can't be that you witnessed Ruvain stealing this animal because you were with us on Sunday." But it's true that it happened. It's true that it happened, but it happened on the second day of Shabbos, which means it happened on a Monday. That it ganav tavach umachar, that he stole, shechted, and sold. So Mishalmin, these witnesses, the first set of witnesses, are considered to be conspiring witnesses, and they have to pay. They have to pay the knas. Why? Because Ruvain could have come in and self-incriminate, and then he wouldn't have to pay 5 times. He would just have to give back what he stole, right? If he self-incriminates. So because they gave this witness, they gave false testimony, even though it was a true story, it just didn't happen the way they testified. So since they testified falsely, so therefore they are considered to be conspiring witnesses. Not only that, because at the moment when they came and they said that he has to pay, he's stolen, therefore he has to pay, he wasn't considered to be someone that has to pay, because he could have come in and self-incriminate, and then he wouldn't have to pay 5 times. He would only have to pay once. But let's go back to the same scenario, because we mentioned the previous scenario in capital punishment. So now we're talking about it in a financial way. But if 2 people showed up on a Tuesday, 2 witnesses came on a Tuesday to Bezdin, and they said that on Sunday, Gonav, Tavach Machar, that Ruvain on Sunday sold, shechted and sold, V'nigmar dinoi, and it was already rendered judgment that such a thing happened and that he's liable to pay 5 times. And now after that, another 2 witnesses come. They say that, how could you say that? You were with us on Sunday, right? And it did happen, but that they were found guilty. But it happened on another day. It happened Ella Erev Shabbos. It happened on Friday that he stole and nigmar dinai, and he was found guilty. Or if it wasn't on Friday, they say that it happened that the witnesses come and say Sunday, and the second set of witnesses come and say no, it happened on Monday. Nigmar dinoi, that they were found guilty. This ganev, this thief was found guilty already. So then then they're not considered to be conspiring witnesses. Why aren't they not considered to be conspiring witnesses? Because this person has no way out. He was already, even though what they said is not the whole truth, still they weren't bringing up something that this guy is not guilty of. Meaning he has no way out. He can't come and self-incriminate and have a way out. Because at the moment that they are giving their testimony, he owes that money. And since he already owes that money, therefore, they are not considered to be conspiring witnesses. And with that, we finish this shtickle of Gemara, which this shtickle of Gemara explains the first part of the Mishnah, the second Mishnah that we learned today. And this is at the bottom of Daf Hey Amar Aleph, the last line, which we're going to continue, please God, next week. We're going to continue from the bottom of Hey Amar Aleph, learning the Gemara discusses the second part of the Mishnah, which talks about the 100 sets of witnesses, each one canceling the previous set of witnesses, and what that means and how it goes about. We're going to learn